Welcome, everybody, to week 11 here in CA 102 Culinary Concepts and Foundations. Chef Matthew and I welcome you to another fine session here for everybody. Can you guys believe week 11? What is that? 10, 11. Yeah, you can do it. Yeah, Matthew does it better than I, but we are almost done with this course, this 12 weeks. Has this course flowing by for everybody? What about you, Archie? Did it go by fast? Did it go by fast, Archie?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Jason, yeah. Vincent?
Yeah.
Ivory down there. Ruben, what about you? Did it go by fast? Yeah, it went by super fast for Chef Matthew and I. Can't believe it. We need to make sure that we all finish extremely strong. If your grade is in question at this point, reach out, talk to us, give us a call. My number and Chef Matthew's number is on the right-hand side of the class page. Pick up the phone call. We've already spoken to a couple of you. We're going to help you out. We are here to help you succeed. So make sure that you guys take advantage of that. So there's one saying, and I know Chef Matthew's going to agree with me on this one. Failure is not an option when it comes to culinary arts. Ain't gonna happen, man. When you open that door at 5 o'clock and those reservations start coming in, failure is not an option. We want to see everybody fly through this course. It's really, really important. So we can move you on to 121 with Chef Caesar.
Oh. The show must go on, always.
That's right. It's got to happen. Week 10, everybody. How'd it go? Did everybody like it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So up. Yeah. I thought last week's exercises were pretty cool. How did everybody enjoy the risotto?
I like that. Yes.
No, you just said you made it with carrot cicci. Yeah. Vincent, what about you?
I liked it.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Ruben, you like that risotto? That's cool. Jay, did you have a hard time finding arborio, or was that easily available?
No, I actually had some at my house.
There you go.
So I just used that. Yeah.
Yeah. Ivory, how'd you like that risotto?
It was fine. I made risotto croquettes with it.
Did really? Good for you, man. That's sweet. Right?
Nice.
What about the baked beans? I got a couple of calls about the broth coming out a little bit loose on some of those beans. If that does happen to anybody in the future, just remember when those beans sit overnight, they're going to take care of that liquid. So they will tighten up. And also you need to be careful about how much reserve liquid you add to the beans when you're finishing them off. But the baked beans, just remember that technique. There's a lot of different directions you can go in with those techniques. But just learning the method of doing it is going to get you down the road quite a bit further. Rice pilaf, walk in the park. Does everybody think that? Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's an easy one right there. Daniel, how'd you like that risotto? Yeah, thumbs up. Cool, man. Yeah, Sandra, you got it? You like that risotto? Yeah. Okay, so we had some cool exercises this past week. We've got some even better exercises coming up this week. Chef Matthew, the man, the myth. Yes.
That's me. Yes.
What's your feedback on week 10?
Well, I think overall everybody liked everything. Pretty much hands down, the risotto took the cake. And speaking of risotto cakes, I love risotto cakes. So feel free to mail me some risotto cakes. Anyway, the beans, I think there were some problems with the beans, and a lot of people don't like molasses, myself included. So I would change that recipe up. I had a lot of discussions with quite a few people about changing that recipe. But I think there were some issues, and maybe they were in pans that were too deep, so they took too long, or they got checked. When you open that oven door, you let all the heat out and you close it. It takes a long time for a home oven to recover heat-wise. Commercial ovens are built to recover faster, so you can check stuff more often at work in an oven than you can at home. Just a fact of the way they're built. So, but I think overall everybody liked it, and there were a lot of really good submissions. I'm most of the way through the grading on those, so a lot of really good submissions on that. So
Hands up. I think
Yeah.
this is the last class making baked beans. So we are done with the baked beans. You guys are the final group to go through the baked bean gates. You are now you have now closed the door on another chapter at Escoffier. How we doing? How we doing on all the little things out there with our sanitation and our mise en place?
Well, I saw one barefoot, but other than that, I think it was pretty good. There were
Manicure, pedicure?
yeah, no. No fingernail polish, nothing like that. It was just toes hanging out of a sandal. So, but everybody's wearing hats. Sanitation looks good. And Chef, I've been pressing, not taking points off, of course, but talking to them about their plate presentation because I know that's coming up in the curriculum that they're going to need to have a nice plate when they scoop the risotto and put it on there. They don't want to have drool all the way across the side of the plate to the middle. They don't want to put their beans on the middle and then smear them over to the side and then take a picture and expect that to look good. So I've been kind of pushing them to have pretty plates and work on that, keeping that rim free of debris and fingerprints. So
Chef Caesar in 121 is going to have something to say about that, I have a feeling.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I was thinking.
yeah. The attention to detail, especially with what Chef Matthew was saying, is critical once you get into industry. Nobody wants a dirty plate put down in front of them, especially when you're paying big money for a plate of rice. That thing's got to be pretty. It's essential. Anything else, Chef Matthew?
No, I just I still have a number of incomplete submissions, and that just causes extra grading and everything. And I understand, if you have an issue and you got part of it done and you got interrupted, I get it. It's okay, but just if you can avoid it, it really helps. And had a lot of assignments in on time, so
Awesome.
and a lot of people taking advantage of the resubmit. So
Good job, everybody. That's awesome. So those are some great comments. I like hearing all that stuff. That's good news. I did want to touch on the discussion board with everybody this week. You guys rock. And the discussion board this week was fantastic. I read a lot of really interesting stuff in there. Time management seemed to be the big theme all the way throughout. And that's something that those of you that are in industry now, it's like Daniel, I saw Rachel there, and she's in a kitchen. You guys are probably starting to comprehend how important that time management is, aren't you? Yeah. There's a lot of stuff to get done every day. Ruben, are you in industry? Yeah. So you know how important time management is, right? You hit that floor, you rock until you drop. And there's no excuse at 5 o'clock when your door opens that the prep isn't done. So you have to be able to organize yourself in an efficient manner, and this school is a great example of how to do that. I also noticed a lot of people out there were talking about their knife cuts and how difficult they thought they were, harder than what they initially thought they were going to be. Knife cuts, ladies and gentlemen, don't stop working on them. When you get into 121, this next course, you're going to be doing a lot of different knife cuts based on your own desires. So that is a lifelong learning process. I know Chef Matthew probably still practices. I practice with a knife still. It's not going to go away. So jump on that bandwagon and get in the habit. It's extremely critical. So great job on the discussion this week. And then moving forward into the future, week 11. Can you believe it, man? Chef Matthew, where'd all the time go?
I don't know. It just flew by. It must have been fun. So.
I guess so. Yeah. We are rocking on to week 11, and we are going to be making root vegetables and pasta this week. We're going to be working with carrots vici, fresh egg pasta, and Alfredo sauce. Before we jump into all that, I just want to take a quick gander at our class page over here to make sure we are all on the same screen this week, literally on the same screen. So taking a look at week 11, I hope everybody is taking a look at these wonderfully produced videos right up here that are done by yours truly. They're approximately 30 to 45 seconds long that talk about what's coming up this week. Once you get into 121 as well, here in a couple of weeks, you're going to be having the same videos. Research materials, knowledge checks, and knowledge conversion checks. We still have a couple of folks out there that aren't getting the conversion checks done or the knowledge checks done. Those points catch up to you real quick. So you want to make sure that you get those done. I highly recommend when we conclude this class here in a few minutes, hang up the computer or jump on the computer, get those knowledge checks done, put them to bed. And you know what? Those knowledge checks, as a reminder, you can take them as many times as you like to get the highest score possible, and that's what sticks. So I think I saw one knowledge check last week that came through with 2 out of 10. Don't do that. Take it again. Make sure you read those research materials. Live session, you're here. That's awesome. If you're not, make sure you watch the archive. And then our assignments down here at the bottom for our root vegetables and pasta, carrots vici, fresh egg pasta, fettuccine alfredo. And then here's a help folder for everyone, which is actually a PowerPoint that a student put together. We'll take a look at it a little bit later if we have time. Absolutely fantastic. And it's got a lot of great information in there to help you through the whole thing. So on to the meat and potatoes. Oh wait, there's no meat and potato. Carrots and pasta of the class. Tonight, the first thing we're going to talk about are root vegetables. Root vegetables are a pretty critical thing for the human diet. They're basically defined as vegetables that grow under the ground. Different types of root vegetables include carrots and parsnips, beets, celery root, garlic, potatoes, the list goes on and on. Generally growing in cooler climates, but they are a very critical part of our diet, very, very high in fiber, minerals, and vitamins. So we like to eat those quite a bit. Before we actually start on the actual assignment, or start talking about the actual assignment this week, the carrots vici, you can make your own knife cut this week. You can do a bâtonnet, you can do the rondelle, you can do the oblique. I highly recommend that you do a much larger cut on the actual carrot. Carrots vici are great for industry because you can prep them out ahead of time. Cut all your vegetables ahead of time, saute them in bulk. They hold extremely well on buffets. They hold very well on steam tables. So they are a great dish. So with your knife cut this week for the carrots vici, do a bâtonnet, do the oblique, do the rondelle, do a larger cut that's going to be sturdy and hang up. Stay away from doing a medium dice, small dice, brunoise, because they're going to dissolve as they cook, and you're going to end up with a mess. And then with this dish and our other 2 dishes following this week, make sure you just focus on the technique. I read a couple of comments on the discussion board that some people were having a challenge not adding their special touches to the dishes. And you know what? That is totally cool. I love that attitude, because once you become a chef, people are going to go to your restaurant for your interpretation of carrots vici, your interpretation of risotto. But right now, focus on the technique, master the technique, and then boom, when you're the chef, you can start doing it. So that will help you out quite a bit down the road. This dish is not a sauteed dish. It's actually a light blanch in the saute pan that we're going to talk about here in just a second. And then the garnish on this, once you get into 121, you're going to start talking a little bit more about garnishes. But if you do choose to garnish it, very classic, just a little bit of chopped parsley. When it comes to chopped herbs, don't kill them. I don't like mulch on food. It should be large enough that you can actually identify the fact that it is parsley, right? How many people have been out to a restaurant before where they fine chop their herbs, and then when they sprinkle it on a dish? Yeah, Ruben's shaking his head. But when when you sprinkle it on the dish, you can't identify what it is, and you can't identify the appearance or the flavor of the dish. So we want to make sure that we do chop our herbs a little bit larger so people can identify and actually taste the flavor as well. It's very, very important. Taking a look at Carrots Vichy this week. We have our recipe up here on the screen, which I think is going to help everybody out a little bit. It's super simple. You're supposed to make a 4th recipe this week. Quarter recipe, 1/4. Take your recipe, divide all your ingredients by 4, and that's going to get you right down where you need to be. That's why those conversion charts are so valuable to learn, and they really help out. Take your carrots, you're going to peel them, and then slice them. I recommend the Batnay. I think this is a great dish to practice on. And then the oblique is another fantastic cut to work with. After you've got them prepped out, you're going to go ahead and you're going to place them into a light, or you're going to put them into a saute pan, preferably with straight sides, because you are going to have to cover this dish as it's cooking. You're going to add your butter, sugar, and salt, and boom, cover them up. Let it come to a boil, let them simmer for a few minutes, and then once that water is evaporated, they're going to have a nice glaze to them, and that nice sheen is what you're looking for to identify the finished product. Season with salt, pepper, garnished with chopped parsley. Yes, sir.
Just to note, I mean, the trick is to get the carrots cooked perfectly at the same time the water reduces. So it's kind of you got to be very careful with that note on the water there where it says a straight-sided sauté pan, add enough water to barely cover, because you don't want, if the water cooks off, then the butter burns and the carrots aren't finished. If the water is too deep, then it boils the carrots to mush, and then then you've got the sauce right, but the carrots are terrible. So it's a balancing act. So
you need to be very conscientious about that. And then as well, in industry, when we cook vegetables and a lot of other items as well, we have to contend with what we call carryover heat, right? So when we cook those carrots, if we're to cook them all the way, and then we plan on holding them in a hot box or a steam table or on a buffet line for any period of time, they're obviously going to continue to cook. So we have to make sure that we undercook them slightly to allow for that carryover heat not to kill the product. And then like Chef Matthew was saying, be very conscientious about how much water you add to your pan and how long you let it cook for. Because otherwise those potatoes are going to be a mash, or those carrots are going to be a mash, and it's not going to work out real well for you. So it does take a little bit of technique and a little bit of skill to get this dish absolutely correct. The finished product down here, this is a slice, which is a little bit more of a traditional method, something you would find in France. And then they have a Batnay over here, which I like to do just because of the practice. It really helps out. And then this is an actual picture of the product cooking right up here. So that is what the finished product. They should have a nice sheen to them. They should still be tender to the tooth. And then make sure at the very end that you do season them with the salt and pepper so you can get that flavor profile in there. Does anybody have any questions about that? Thoughts, concerns? No? Cool, man. Let's move on to the next subject, which is something I am very passionate about.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, pasta. And my first restaurant, I owned it for about 7 years, and we were very successful. We put it on the market because I needed a break, and I had other plans in my life. And the place sold in a week and a half to a family from Palermo, Sicily. And I sat, and they paid me to stay on for a couple of months to train them for during the transitional period. And I sat with them and the grandparents on a nightly basis, and we sat at the table and we rolled pasta. And so many fond memories of that dish. My gurus were from Italy as well, so This is something I take very seriously. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, focus 100% on the technique of doing this. Once you master the technique, then you can start making green pasta with green peas or parsley added to it to get the chlorophyll into it. Then you can start making orange pasta, etc., etc. So pasta just in general has about 600 different varieties available. I mean, there's tagliatelle, cavatelli, the penne, I mean, and the list goes on and on. I could talk all night about it. However, in industry, we do fresh pasta. Generally, it will be for a nightly special or for one particular dish on the menu. Fresh pasta can be very labor intensive in comparison to working with dried pasta that is kept in your storeroom that comes in a box. However, the fresh pasta has such a big difference to it that I love the fresh pasta, the flavor, the texture, and everything else to it. Now, when it comes to making the pasta, we're going to go through the entire process here. What we're primarily focused on when we get to the mixing part or the kneading part is the development of the glutens, right? So, you know, there are different types of flour, from pastry to all-purpose to bread to the durum semolina that is traditionally used in the pasta making. They all have different levels of protein in them, right? Pastry flour has about 3% protein, all-purpose flour has about 7, and then bread gets up to about 10. And in that flour, there are 2 different proteins, glutenin and glutenine. And when you add water and you begin to knead that substance, you develop what we call glutens. Gluten is what holds the structure in bread, in pasta, tortillas, cakes, pies, everything else. So those are actually the structural walls that you're going to be developing with this pasta dish. So you've got your flour, your egg, and your water, and you begin to knead, and we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. You need to make sure that you knead that dough until it gets to a smooth, elastic consistency, and that will tell you that your glutens are developed enough, because you don't want to be cooking off your pasta and have it fall into the pot and disperse. So it's extremely critical. Now, when it comes to the actual flour that we use for this exercise this week, we're using all-purpose flour. Very common in industry to make fresh pasta with all-purpose flour. However, when you read the back of a package that comes from a dried pasta, you're generally going to see durum semolina, which is a very high protein flour. Durum is the type of flour, right? And semolina is the type of grind, right? So it's durum semolina, type of flour, grind of flour. And that's what the label is referring to. And then before we get going on the actual preparation of this, a couple of people asked before class. Yes, a pasta roller would be nice. In industry, we use them quite a bit because of the amount of volume that we produce with the pasta. However, a rolling pin will suffice for this exercise. Yes, sir.
I had Gina asked me earlier today. She's like, "Chef, I don't know if I'm going to go out and buy a pasta machine, and I don't have a rolling pin. How do we get around this?" I said, "Well, you know, gosh, I've been in that same jam myself. I actually got kind of stuck on a catering gig, and I had to roll out some pasta, and I was going, where's my rolling pin? Where's my rolling pin?" And I grabbed a can of pan spray and wrapped it in plastic wrap, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
Everybody loved the pasta. So who
That's
needs to know?
That goes back to that old saying, failure's not an option, you know?
All right.
We're
The
gonna
show
make
must
it happen
go on.
regardless. So if you don't have a pasta maker, don't go out and sell your car to buy one. It's not absolutely necessary. If you don't have a rolling pin, can of pan spray, can of tomato sauce, something like that will work out perfectly fine for you. So don't worry, we'll walk you through the process and you will get through it. Very, very important. Another thing I know that we're going to get asked here in a few minutes is this pasta is made with fresh egg. A lot of people are going to say, can we store it for a long time? Is it going to go rancid on us? Do we have to refrigerate it? Well, what happens when you develop this pasta? The water activity within the pasta is so low that it's not able to grow bacteria as required. So that pasta will actually last for quite a long time without being refrigerated once you dry it. We're going to take a look at a drying rack here in a few minutes as well. It's the same thing with bacon. I don't know if many people realize this, but like cooked bacon in restaurants and hotels is not required to be refrigerated because of the fact the water activity, and that's the amount of water that is held within the product, is so low that there's not enough water in there for the bacteria to grow or to transmit itself thoroughly throughout the food. So you will hear the term water activity brought up quite a bit, especially once you get into ServSafe, and that's what they're referring to. So this pasta, the level of water activity is low, so you're not going to have to really worry about that too much. And then as far as industry is concerned, this is what we refer to as an a la minute dish, made to order for the moment. This is not something that you're going to produce and utilize on a buffet, or utilize in a steam table, or utilize in a bulk pasta salad. It's a more delicate product than traditional dried pasta. So you're going to want to make sure that after you process this product, after you fabricate the pasta, that it gets used in a fairly quick time frame. Now, pasta. In the restaurant industry, for those of you that are already in there, how many people have pasta on their menus? Is anybody? Yeah. Jay, you've probably worked with it. Demara, Liz. Yeah. What about you, Ruben? You have pasta on your menu? Yeah. So you guys probably pre-cook your pasta about halfway, and then it goes into an ice bath, which is what it should do. And then it is drained, and then it is oiled, and then it is probably portioned out and put into Ziploc baggies, or portioned out and put into some type of hotel pan, where when you get an order in the restaurant, you'll grab that pre-cooked pasta, drop it into the water, heat it up within 30 seconds, boom, toss it in your sauce and sell it. Whereas with fresh pasta, you're not going to do that. It does not work out very well because that pasta will fall apart. That pasta will continue to absorb liquid versus the dried pasta. So you're going to want to cook it to order. The cooking time on that pasta is about 2.5 to 3 minutes. So it's extremely quick versus a traditional pasta, which is going to be about 8 minutes. And one more thing. This week we are making fettuccine Alfredo as our final dish, right? Fettuccine Alfredo, I know it's very addictive. Alfredo sauce is a great buffet sauce. I love using it on buffets because it's thick, it's heavy, it insulates the food, and it's got a lot of flavor to it. Fettuccine, ladies and gentlemen, is 1/4 inch wide. Yep, about right there. Is that about right there? 1/4 inch wide, and I'm going to show you how to cut that here in just a few moments. But if you start getting larger than that, if you get into like the 1/2 inch range, then you get into the tagliatelle pastas, which are for really heavy sauces. Pasta sauces should also coordinate with the pasta, right? So if you are serving a fettuccine pasta, which is a 1/4 inch wide noodle and about 10 to 12 inches long, right? You're going to want to serve a heavier sauce that sticks to that noodle, that grabs onto it, right? If you are working with a thinner noodle, such as a capellini or an angel hair, you're going to want to use a much thinner, lighter sauce, such as an olive oil or a butter sauce. Get a little bit bigger, then you can get into bolognese, which is kind of a liquidy sauce, as you all know. So make sure that once you get into industry, when you're writing menus, make sure that pasta coincides with the sauce. Do not do a fettuccine primavera. It doesn't work, right? So you would do an angel hair or a capellini primavera, but you need to make sure that those are coordinated. So let's take a look at our recipe this week for this dish and see what we got going on over here. So the actual recipe itself is extremely simple. Make sure you measure your ingredients out as prescribed. Do not deviate from the recipe, right? Learn the technique. Once you learn this technique, then you can begin the deviation, right? So it's calling for bread flour here. If you don't have bread flour, all-purpose flour is an acceptable substitute this week. Like I
Can we make the full recipe this week?
If that makes you happy, make the full recipe. I say yes, go for it. Yeah. So the bread flour, like we were talking about a few moments ago, has a higher protein content. Okay, so you're probably going to have to work it a little bit less because those glutens are going to develop a little bit quicker because it's got about 10% protein in it versus all-purpose, which has about 7% protein in it. So you're going to develop, it's going to take you a little bit more work to develop the glutens with the all-purpose, but that's perfectly fine. Eggs, olive oil, salt. That's it. That's all you need for this. And what you're going to do is you're going to take a clean work surface and you're going to take your flour. And what was that movie where the guy built the volcano? It wasn't Poltergeist, but it was around that time. Was it Poltergeist? No, E.T.? I don't know. He built some volcano, the toy volcano.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Thank you, Dan.
There you go.
Because Chef Matthew was looking at me like I'm a little off my rocker, but I remember it now. Let's go back. Right? So you're going to build a volcano on your clean work surface. Okay? In the center of that volcano, you are going to build a well. That well should be about 4 to 6 inches wide and almost all the way down to your work surface. So you have a well, lots of flour on the inside, 4 to 6 inches wide, and about a ½ inch from the work surface. Once your well is developed, you're going to pour your scrambled eggs into that well and your olive oil and your salt. And you're going to take a fork and you're going to start mixing in the center of that well. And as you mix, you're going to slowly mix. Practice this, otherwise you're going to get egg everywhere, trust me. So you're going to slowly begin to pull some flour in to the center of the well with the fork as you're mixing. That substance is going to get thicker. Once it gets too thick to stir, you're going to fold all the flour in and you're going to begin to knead it. And you're going to knead it, probably 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. I don't know if anybody's ever seen bakers out there, professional bakers, or if anybody's ever done baking. They all look like Popeye, right? Because they've got those arms. You're going to develop those in this exercise. So to knead the pasta dough, you're going to take a lightly floured surface. You now have a ball of pasta dough, and using the palms of your hands, right, that are clean, washed, rinsed, and sanitized, right, you're going to begin pushing down onto the dough, pushing forward, folding it back, push it forward, fold it back. Push aggressively all the way down to the cutting board. The more you do it, the harder it's going to become. You're going to notice almost like a stringy fashion developing in your dough. Those are the glutens that you are creating. Flour does not come with gluten, right? Ooh, it doesn't come in there. You have to make the gluten. The gluten is made by the addition of liquid and kneading, right? So you're going to knead it for about 10 to 15 minutes. You want that product to become smooth and elastic, right? It's going to be kind of hard to pull, right? But it's going to be very nice and smooth. You're going to shape it into a ball, and then you're going to wrap it in plastic wrap. It's recommended to let it sit for at least 30 minutes, right? I like to let it sit overnight in the refrigerator and then pull it out, let it warm up a little bit. What you're trying to do is you're letting those glutens relax, right? And once those glutens become relaxed, it's a little bit easier to begin rolling it out. Now, once you're ready to start rolling it out, you're going to take your clean work surface. It's going to be lightly floured, a nice dusting of flour. And you're going to start with a smaller portion of dough. You can probably get 4 or 5 dough balls out of that one full batch of pasta dough. A dough ball is going to be approximately 4 ounces. And with your rolling pin, if you do not have a pasta machine, you're going to begin rolling that pasta dough out flat to an 1/8 of an inch thickness, 1/8 of an inch, right? 1/8 of an inch. And if it begins to stick, lightly coat it with flour, flip it over, lightly coat it with flour, begin to roll. Also flour your rolling pin. That will help you out quite a bit as well. A lot of people forget to flour the rolling pin. Hey, it needs love too, right? Don't discriminate against your rolling pin. So you're going to flour it and then continue to work it out. Apply even pressure to your rolling pin. I've seen so many people, they push real hard with their left because that's their dominant hand, and the right side is bigger, right? So you want to apply even pressure. You're going to roll it out till it gets to be about 10 inches to 12 inches and 1/8 of an inch thick. You are then going to dust it with flour, flip it over, dust it with flour. Okay? We're going to talk about this again here in just a minute. Then you're going to do what we call a book fold, right? So if it's like this, you're going to fold it over once, and then you're going to fold it over again. It's also called the trifold. Okay? So fold it over once, fold it over again. You floured your pasta already, so it's not going to stick. So now, instead of a 12-inch sheet, you have about a 4-inch piece to cut, right? If you try to make long, even cuts on a 12-inch sheet, they're all going to come out weavy, right? So, but if you fold it up, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to make 1/4-inch cuts all the way down that long.
Recipe.
What's that?
We're still seeing the recipe, or we're supposed to be looking at the recipe, or are you demonstrating something?
Oh, yeah. I'll get back to what I'm demonstrating here in just a second. And then let's run through this here real quick. This is the volcano that we were talking about. And that's the well, 4 to 6 inches wide. Egg in there. You can scramble it first if you prefer to, or you can scramble it when it's actually in the well with your olive oil and salt. And as you're stirring it, that substance is going to become thick, and then it's all going to stick together. And then this is the actual kneading process. You can see how they are using the palm of their hand, push down and through the dough, right? And you're going to do that for about 10 to 15 minutes until those glutens develop. It should look like this picture right up here. And then once you've got to that point, you're going to lay it out flat. And then this is the book fold that I was talking about right here. And see how easy it is to cut the 1/4-inch strips versus trying to cut 1/4-inch strips out of an entire sheet, which can be rather difficult. And then this is what we refer to as a pasta drying rack. And I've used broomsticks before. I've used the spoons, whatever I could find laying around to hang my pasta to let it dry. And that is the basic principle there. And I want to share with you again real quick about the book fold. So we rolled out our sheet to 1/8 of an inch thick, right? 10 to 12 inches long. So it's going to be sheet, right? The pasta, we applied even pressure. We dusted our pasta on one side. We flipped it over. We dusted the other side. And then once we get to that eighth of an inch thickness, we're going to do the book fold, right? So it's a trifold. Once over and then one more on top. And then you have that log that's pictured right here, which is a lot easier to cut versus an actual sheet. Does that make sense to everybody? Is that good? Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. Let's answer Timothy's question here real quick. What's going on, Timothy?
Well, Chef, I was going to wait till a little later to ask, but I missed my week 7 conversion check somehow. I want to know how we remake that.
Sure. Shoot me a message after class and I'll work with you.
All right.
All right. Thanks. All right. So now we've got our pasta cut. Chef Matthew.
Just back to the dough ball. One thing I usually do to check the dough ball is when it's smooth and round and you've got it kneaded to the point where you think it's ready, I'll usually push my thumb in it, and if it bounces back all the way up, then I know that it's got the right elasticity. If I put my thumb in and it stays down, then it's too soft, so it needs more gluten development.
Absolutely, that's a great suggestion. Something else we do too, we will pull on the dough, and if the dough will get a 4-inch pull to it, that means we have enough glutens developed. So we want to go between 4 and 6 inches, be able to pull the dough, And if it stays together and the stringiness, you see those glutens in there, then we know we've worked our dough enough. It's got that nice, smooth, elastic appearance to it. And that helps out tremendously. So does anybody have any questions about the actual pasta making process? We all good on that?
Has anybody chewed gum before?
Uh,
And you know how you chew gum, and the longer you chew it, it gets tougher and tougher and more rubbery and more. That's what we're doing with this dough. That's why you need to knead it so it develops that strength to hold it together when it cooks. Otherwise, when it gets in the water, it's going to cook and then it's going to fall apart. It's going to turn into a puddle of flour goo. It's a mess.
it needs that structure.
Needs that structure. Yep.
What's going on, Dan Peck?
Hey, probably a real simple question. When it comes to the trifold and I'm rolling the dough out to an 1/8 of an inch thick, 10 to 12 inches long, I'm not getting a 10 to 12 inch wide piece either, correct? So
Yeah.
when it comes to trifold, am I folding it end to end, or am I still folding it through the width size?
Oh, you're gonna have your sheet, right? And your sheet's gonna be 10 to 12 inches long. If it's 8 inches, it's okay. Nobody's gonna pick up on that. That's perfectly fine. So you have your sheet, fold 1/3 in, fold the other third over the top,
Okay.
right? And you've lightly dusted it with flour already, so it's not gonna stick. And I forgot to mention, just like Chef Matthew's holding up, you're gonna trim the edges so it's nice and squared up. And that's all you gotta do, cut 1/4 inch strips all the way down the log.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you basically make something that your knife can fit on instead of having something that your knife can't fit on and you have to go like this.
Right. You don't want to cut an entire sheet. That's that doesn't work out so well. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Dan? Cool. All right, ladies and gents. Moving on to our final subject of the night, Alfredo sauce, right? So Alfredo sauce is a classic Italian sauce for fettuccine Alfredo. Originally, it used to be made way back when, and it's still made this way in Italy. It's just Parmesan and butter. And that butter or that Parmesan breaks down into the butter and creates a nice creamy sauce. However, here, we're going to be doing it a little bit differently, a little bit more American style. Like I was mentioning earlier, I really enjoy Alfredo sauce in industry. Number one, it's a great seller. People identify with it. So, you know, when you have kind of a real funk menu, sometimes I like to put really relatable dishes on there that the not so adventurous diner can turn to, right? So if I'm serving Chilean sea bass wrapped in banana leaf with lemon caper butter, with fig reduction, I might, on the other side of the menu, put fettuccine Alfredo. This way, the more conservative folks out there can turn to the fettuccine while you flagship your dish. The sauce in industry, if we were in banquet mode, we could make 5 gallons at a time quite easily. It holds very well on a buffet. It is kind of temperature sensitive though, because it will continue to reduce. Once it reduces, it does break because heavy cream is very high in fat. So you need to be very conscientious of that and make sure that you keep your eye on your temperature, not only while you're making this, but after you make it as well. If you pre-make this in industry, it can be a bit of a challenge to reheat. We have to do what we call rehydrate. When we rehydrate sauces and stocks in industry, we don't just heat them and bring them to a boil and then serve them. You have to doctor it by adding liquid to continue working it back to its proper consistency. So oftentimes what we'll do is we'll start a little bit of water in our sauce pot, heat it up, add a little bit of Alfredo sauce, heat it up, add a little bit more Alfredo sauce, heat it up. So we'll do it in stages. That creates that nice consistency, and it also prevents the sauce from breaking. So you might want to be conscientious about that. Taking a look at our recipe this week, quite simple. Once again, we're dealing with heavy cream, butter, fettuccine, and Parmesan, salt, and pepper. That's all there is. right? And that's all you need to worry about. A lot of people are going to say, hey, I want garlic in this. You can add some fresh garlic to it. That's totally cool. I know there's a lot of garlic addicts out there, GA people, so totally cool. We'll work with you. Before you start making this dish, make sure you put a pot of water on the stove to cook your pasta, right? You don't want to make this sauce and then have to wait for your pasta water to boil. It's a hassle. So you're going to, while you're making the sauce, you're going to have your pot of water coming to a boil on your stove. Same thing we do in industry. We've always got hot water going. Time management, we talked about at the beginning of the class. Poor time management would be a bunch of cooks standing around waiting for a pot of water to boil, right? So we proact and we think about it in advance. So all you're going to do is you're going to put your cream and your butter into a saute pan. This is a pan sauce, is what we call it. You're going to bring it to a simmer, let it reduce. You're going to drop your fresh fettuccine into your water, and you're going to cook that fettuccine for approximately 2 to 3 minutes. One of the tools that I use when it's at a rapid boil is wait for that pasta to float to the surface, and when that pasta is on the surface, it's generally done, right? Now, as a real quick side note, one of the reasons, the main reason that we add salt to pasta water is not for flavor, because if it was for flavor, we would simply add more salt to the pasta. When you add salt or sodium to boiling water, it actually increases the boiling point of the water, which forces more starch extraction from the pasta, giving you a crisper, more al dente noodle. That is the point behind adding salt to pasta water. So after they're cooked, you're going to scoop them out or drain them into a colander, whichever you choose. We use pasta baskets in industry. They're round, they look like strainers. A lot of them, most of them have metal handles that we somehow managed to blowtorch off over a period of time. That's a cool story. So you're going to pull those noodles out, shake them dry. Once you shake them dry, you're going to drop them right into your pan, and then you're going to simply toss the sauce into the fettuccine. Fettuccine Alfredo is not poured on top of the pasta. Alfredo sauce is tossed into the pasta. So that's a big deal. Once you toss it, you can hit it with a little bit more cream, Parmesan cheese, salt and pepper, and bingo, you're done, right? You are ready for the road. So taking a look briefly here at the Alfredo sauce, here is kind of an example of what the finished sauce was. You can, after you reduce your sauce by 1/4, add your Parmesan cheese, which is what a lot of chefs do, and that will kind of create that stringy type consistency that's in there. And then you have a finished product here. Please don't kill it with garnish. It's fettuccine Alfredo. Let it speak for itself. It's kind of like Madonna in the white dress, you know, just leave it alone. And it works out quite well that way. So with that pasta, once again, or with the Alfredo sauce, before you start your actual cooking process, put your pot of pasta water on. Your fettuccine's done. It's waiting for you, right? Standing over there waiting. And so you're going to bring your pot of water to a boil. You can add a little bit of salt to it to raise the cooking temperature. You're going to add your cream, your butter into your saute pan. Let it reduce by 1/4. I like to add the cheese at that point because it creates kind of a little bit more of a creamy consistency. Then you're going to pull your noodles out of the pasta water. You're going to toss it nicely, and then add a little bit more cream if you think it's too dry, if it's necessary. Salt and pepper, put it down on the plate, hit it with a little garnish. Don't kill it, right? Just learn the technique, and you're going to rock it out. Yeah. Any questions, anybody? No? Everybody understands this week? Did I forget anything about this, Chef Matthew?
No, I keep thinking about people making pasta dough for the first time. One of my recommendations is if your dough is a little wet, like it doesn't have enough flour in it, you're pretty safe. You can add more flour. But if you get too much flour and it's too dry, you can't mix it You can't knead it. It's too dry, so throw it away and start over. So if anything, make your mistake by not putting enough flour in, then you get the feel of your dough. If it's sticky, it doesn't have enough flour. You should be able to apply it in your hands and it doesn't stick to your hands. So
that's an awesome point. What we refer to it as well in industry is when you put your thumb into it, it should pull away clean, but there should be just a light kiss to it, right? As it pulls away, right? And that tells you that you're right at the proper level. The recipe does call for a specific amount of flour with a specific amount of liquid. Like Chef Matthew was saying, don't add all your flour because getting the flour out is really tough. So you just want to add just enough flour to bring it together. If you stick your finger in there and it all sticks as you pull it out, you need to add more flour, right? So you want to be able just to stick your thumb on there, and it should give you a light kiss as you're pulling it back, right? Just a little stick, and that tells you you're right on the money. Because you have to remember, as you are rolling the pasta dough out, you're going to be adding additional flour to it. And you want to make sure that you don't overflour your pasta, otherwise it becomes dry and cracky, and it's a mess. Yeah, it doesn't work out real well. So, any other questions about the pasta? Chef Matthew, you were going to say something?
Well, and you said it earlier, the next most important thing is letting it rest. So once you've mixed it, let it rest at least 30 minutes.
Yep. I don't know how many of you guys out there work out, right? But when you get out of the gym, it's nice to chill out for a little bit. Same thing with your pasta dough. Let it rest, right? Let that gluten relax a little bit. It's very, very important. Moving on to our next thing here is our assignment this week. And just want to make sure that we're all on the same monitor, like I mentioned earlier. So with our carrots Vichy, right, we have our self-identification photo, very, very important. Sanitizing bucket, test strip, demonstrating concentration, right in between 50 and 100 parts per million. Make Chef Matthew happy. Get that strip right on the money. It's important. Mise en place. Don't forget, you guys are about to go into 121. You're about to get the boot from a 102. Make sure that when you show up at 121 that you're carrying these practices with you because they're very, very important. These are things that you will be doing in industry. Carrots prepped, right? Oblique cut. It says the oblique cut, not bias cut here. Like I said in the beginning, if you want to do bâtonnet, that's perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. We're wide open for that. Carrots cooking close up. So as they're in the pan, the water, the butter, the sugar, the salt, take a picture of them. Finished product plated. It should be, it's a side dish, so it's going to be 3-4 ounces for a vegetable on the plate. It doesn't need to be a mound. If you are serving it family style, that's fine. Just make sure Chef Matthew understands that when he takes a look at it. Self-identification photo for your pasta and your mise en place. Flour well with liquid and eggs in the middle. Very, very important. And then properly kneaded dough. Make sure you follow some of those great hints that Chef Matthew was talking about. Very, very important. He brought up a great thing about sticking your thumb into the dough to make sure that the glutens are developed properly. And we also talked about pulling the dough. Pulling the dough, it should get a good 4 to 6 inch stretch. That's very important. And make sure you check the moisture content by sticking your thumb in there and give it a little kiss as you're pulling it away. And then properly kneaded dough, ready for proper storage. And then the simmering sauce, you want to take it to nappe. So that means you're going to stick a spoon in there. You'll rub your finger down the back. It'll stay parted. And then make sure you take a picture of the water boiling. And then plate an entree-size portion of pasta. Entree-size portion of pasta is going to be about 6 ounces with 2 to 3 ounces of sauce. So don't be cooking for Shaquille O'Neal and serving it on a plate. Make sure you get your narrative done this week as well. And your 2 knowledge checks, bang those out today. Boom, make your grocery list tomorrow. Run ahead of the game. And then boom, Friday, start your prep. And then Saturday, submit your assignment if possible, or Sunday, even better. You know, time management, way ahead of the game. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. Chef Matthew?
I think that sums it up, Chef. Looks like to Mary Liz, do you have a question?
So if I make the dough tonight and put it in the refrigerator, it'll be okay, right?
Till tomorrow, yeah.
Okay.
So it does have a good shelf life in the refrigerator. Just make sure it's wrapped properly, because any exposure to the air will force the dough to dry out.
Yeah, just wrap it up like if I was doing bread or something.
That's
Yep.
it right there. Yeah, real tight.
And you'll need to let it come up to room temp before it'll roll out. So
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So you want to pull it out at least an hour before you work with it.
All right.
Anybody else have any questions? Let's call it a night, ladies and gents. Thank you for a great week 11. We'll see you next week. Make sure you get those assignments in. We're almost done. And don't forget, ladies and gents, call if you need help. Look forward to talking to everybody. Everybody have a great week. Talk to you soon.
Good night.